I told my dad I've never been with a girl, and he tried to play matchmaker. He doesn't know I'm gay. A few days ago I, 20 male, decided to visit my dad at his house. It was his birthday. I showed up with wine. We got a little drunk. Maybe more than a little. When my dad was done going on and on about how much he missed my mom since she divorced him, he changed the subject and focused on my love life. He asked if I had a girlfriend and I said no. Then he asked if I've ever had a girlfriend because he's never seen me with a girl. I said never. My dad poured the last drop of wine in my glass and asked if I still had my V card. I was tempted to lie, but I paused too long, so I said yes. My dad said I had no reason to feel ashamed about my intimate life, but encouraged me to have as much love-making as possible before I end up married to a person whose private parts come with an impenetrable encryption. I ignored the obvious reference to my mom's you-know-what and called it a night. I asked my dad if I was allowed to sleep in the spare bedroom because I didn't want to drive home drunk. My dad said I was more than welcome. I must have been sleeping for less than an hour before I woke up to the sound of my dad knocking on the door. I don't remember what I mumbled as I opened my eyes, but the moment my dad heard my voice, he entered my room with another person. It was a girl. My dad introduced her by name, but did the air quotes thing with his fingers to imply that it was a fake name. I could tell my dad was still drunk. Exhibit A, he continued making the air quote gesture, even when it was no longer necessary. Not gonna lie, I was still drunk too, but not drunk enough to disregard the weird stuff that was happening. Without giving me proper time to react, my dad quickly said the girl knew exactly what to do before closing the door on his way out. The girl did not know what to do. She did nothing other than awkwardly wait for me to say something. I eventually asked her what was going on and she said my dad hired her to sleep with me. I died of embarrassment, especially when the girl asked me to explain if I was on the zero experience, or the some experience end of the V card spectrum. Without thinking, I said I was gay. It was the first time I actually said it out loud. The girl sat down on the bed and asked if I was a top or a bottom. I shrugged and said I didn't know yet. My face must have been so red at that moment. The girl said if I was willing to go shower, then she would basically be willing to motorboat my behind. To be honest, I considered it. I'm human. I'm turned on. However, the situation was way too weird for me to be completely comfortable doing something that intimate with someone I didn't know at all. I said, thank you, but no thank you to the girl and apologized for my dad putting both of us in an awkward position. She said she understood and for some reason thought it was necessary to mention that my dad was one of their regular customers. She made it clear for the record that she never made love with my dad, but explained that some of her older coworkers at the service really enjoyed spending time with him. She said she can't wait to tell the other SX workers that she met me because apparently my dad loves to talk about his son with the people he pays to screw. I was not psychologically prepared for the unexpected discussion regarding my dad's intimate life. The girl had a severe case of motormouth. When she finally stopped talking, I learned that my dad sleeps with these workers who kind of look like my mom and that women closing their eyes with too much food in their mouth and saying, turns him on. The girl apologized for abusing my good listening skills and asked if there was nothing she could do for me. I said she could keep my sexuality between the two of us. She said her lips were sealed until the time comes to perform her services. My dad was passed out in the living room when we approached the front door. I went back to bed when the girl was gone and eventually fell asleep. The following morning, I confronted my dad. I said I didn't appreciate what he did and made sure he understood that he wasted his money because nothing happened. My dad was apologetic and promised never to cross that line again, no matter how much alcohol is involved. Despite his apology, the mood was still somewhat tense. I decided to break the tension by closing my eyes and saying, while eating breakfast. The look on my dad's face was priceless. I lost my appetite soon afterwards because I instantly regretted doing something that might excite my father. Update, I told my dad I've never been with a girl, and he tried to play matchmaker. He doesn't know I'm gay. The inevitable happened. The worker my dad hired to terminate my V card in the dead of night did not keep her mouth shut. I know. I should have seen it coming. When I shared my original post, I was convinced my dad didn't know I was gay. I never said anything to anyone about my sexuality, other than to the worker who teamed up with my father to unexpectedly put me in a vulnerable position. My dad and I have been avoiding each other since that night. Not gonna lie, I was okay with that. We needed space. The words divorced dad, V card having son and SX worker should never be said in the same sentence. This morning my dad showed up at my apartment. It was unusual but not surprising. He was courteous enough to call beforehand, and asked if I was available. He said he wanted to talk. I assumed he was still feeling bad about ambushing me with an SX worker and wanted to make sure that our relationship was intact. Little did I know that my dad's primary objective was to establish if his 20-year-old son was intimately attracted to other people's 20-year-old sons. As soon as my dad made himself at home in my living room, he asked if we were alone. I said my roommate was at the gym. My dad's response was to drop the following line: sharing an apartment with a guy who works out must be motivating. Slow clap. Subtle as heck, my father. He didn't even need to wink at the camera. My dad asked if my roommate had a girlfriend. I implied that he had girls that come and go. My dad said my roommate must be handsome to get so much attention. I shrugged and said, or he's paying for it. It was a joke. An uncomfortable joke based on my dad's disturbed expression. My dad said he could explain the workers and answer all my questions if I was prepared to listen. I said it was none of my business and he didn't owe me an explanation, but I did suggest that he at least considered therapy. My dad said he was proud of the person I've become and promised to think about my suggestion. As wholesome as that moment was, the gay elephant was still in the room, so I awkwardly asked my dad if he recently communicated with the worker he hired to hook up with me. My dad said no because he wanted to respect my privacy and avoid crossing the line again. Based on all the random references to my roommate's attractiveness, I was convinced my dad heard I was gay from one of the other workers, who heard it from the worker with the motor mouth. We danced around the topic of my sexuality for a little longer because it was still a big moment despite all the weird crap that happened the last time my dad and I were under the same roof. I eventually came out and said it. Dad, I'm gay. My dad stood up and showed me he was wearing socks with rainbow stripes to celebrate the news. I didn't even notice his socks until he lifted the leg opening of his pants. He said it was a gift from the workers. He had another pair of rainbow socks in his pocket, which he gave to me when we were done hugging. I suppose the outcome could have been worse. I doubt there will be another update, so thank you for riding this wave with me.